Okay, imagine two people facing the exact same problem. Life has just thrown them a massive curveball, something completely unexpected and, incredibly frustrating. The first person immediately throws their hands up and says, "Why does this always happen to me? Life is so unfair." They're literally paralyzed by the obstacle. But the second person, they take a deep breath and say, "Okay, this happened. What's the best way to fix it?" Both experience the exact same challenge. But flash forward exactly 1 year later, and one of these people is still complaining about that curveball, while the other has entirely moved past it and actually leveled up in their life.
So, what made the difference? Seriously, why is there such a massive gap between where these two people ended up after facing identical circumstances? Well, I'll tell you what it wasn't. It wasn't intelligence, it wasn't about who had better luck, and it certainly wasn't about money.
It was 100% their mindset. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking the fascinating source material behind why successful people think in solutions instead of complaining, and how you can actually change your mindset today. I am thrilled to guide you through this because becoming solution-oriented instead of complaint-oriented is a real game changer. It's one of the most powerful habits you can ever develop. Mastering this one shift can completely transform your career, your relationships, your business, and the whole shebang. So let's dive into it.
Section 1. Productive versus destructive questions. Right off the bat, let's be crystal clear. Asking questions is not a bad thing. In fact, questions are incredibly powerful. Every major invention, every medical innovation, and every great discovery in human history literally started with someone asking a question. But there's a massive difference in the type of question you ask.
Look at how this plays out in our own heads. On the left, we've got productive questions. These sound like, what can I learn? How can I improve? What's the next step? Who can help me? These are totally action-oriented. On the right, we have destructive questions. Why me? Why is everyone against me? Why is life unfair? Why can't anything go right? Notice the difference? The productive questions are designed to move you forward, while the destructive ones are basically guaranteed to keep you trapped and stuck exactly where you are. Moving on to Section 2, the trap of complaining. So if these destructive questions keep us stuck, why do we fall into this trap so often? Well, honestly, because complaining actually feels good, for a few minutes at least. It gives us this very real but very temporary sense of emotional relief. We vent, we sigh, we feel validated, but the trap is that it never, ever solves the actual root of the problem.
Let's make this super relatable. Imagine you're driving, and your car breaks down on the side of the highway. You essentially have two choices here. Option 1, you can sit there for the next 2 hours complaining to anyone who will listen about the bad roads, your terrible luck, the awful weather, and how much you hate the car manufacturer. Or Option 2, you can pick up your phone and just call a mechanic. I have to ask you, which option actually gets your car moving again? Exactly.
Here is the bottom line. Complaints express frustration, but solutions create progress. It is really that simple. When you complain, you're merely announcing to the world that you're frustrated. When you seek a solution, you're actively creating momentum. And this principle applies to literally every facet of our lives. Section 3, your brain's search engine. Let's dive into the underlying psychology here and look at how our brains naturally process information, and exactly why negative thinking can spiral out of control so fast if we aren't careful. Think about it like this. Your brain is literally like Google. It's this incredibly powerful search engine that actively scours your memories, your environment, and your experiences to find answers to whatever questions you feed into it. Just think about that. Your brain's primary job is to collect evidence to confirm your internal dialogue. Watch how this works in real time. If you constantly ask your internal search engine, "Why am I so unlucky?" your brain immediately starts collecting evidence to prove you right. It's going to remind you of the time you spilled your coffee, the time you got passed over for a promotion, and the time you hit every red light on the way to work. But if you ask, "How can I improve?" your brain pivots. It starts searching for opportunities, resources, and ideas. Your questions literally shape your reality. This is exactly why successful people are so incredibly careful about the questions they ask themselves every single day. They look for possibilities, responsibility, and solutions instead of excuses and blame. When faced with a problem, they don't ask, "Who created this?" They ask, "Who can solve it?" And usually, they answer, "I can."
Section 4. A real-life workplace example. Let's pull this into the real world and look at a practical workplace example involving two different employees facing the exact same stressful situation.
Both employees receive some pretty critical feedback from their manager. Employee A immediately goes on the defensive, right? They internalize it negatively and say, my manager doesn't like me. He always finds mistakes. I'm never appreciated. But employee B takes a totally different approach. They say, interesting. What skills do I need to improve? What can I do differently next month? Fast forward 6 months. Employee A is still in the exact same role, still complaining to coworkers by the coffee machine. Employee B, they took the feedback, learned the new skills, and got promoted.
This points to a massive realization. Success is determined by your response, not your circumstances. Remember, both of those employees were in the exact same company, dealing with the exact same manager, and getting the exact same critique. The circumstances were identical. The only variable was their internal response.
Which brings us to Section 5, 5 Habits for a Solution-Oriented Mindset. So now that we clearly see the incredible contrast between these two mindsets, how do we actually rewire our brains to automatically look for the mechanics instead of cursing the weather? Let's break down the exact habits you need to develop.
According to the source material, there's a simple 5-step framework. 1. Pause before reacting. 2. Focus on what you control. 3. Action over complaints. 4. Ask better questions. And 5. Mind your network. These aren't massive, life-altering overhauls, they're just simple, daily micro-habits. Let's look at each one.
Step 1 is the pause. When stuff hits the fan, our instinct is to react instantly and emotionally. The habit here is to just stop, take a deep breath, and detach your emotions from the facts. You need to ask yourself, what is actually happening, rather than, what am I feeling? By focusing on objective reality, you strip away the panic and create space for a logical solution.
Step 2, focus on what you actually control. You can't control the weather, you can't control other people's opinions, and you definitely can't control the past. Wasting energy on those things is just a recipe for frustration. What you do have total power over is your attitude, the effort you put in, what you choose to learn from a situation, and your very next action. Successful people ruthlessly focus their energy only on these controllable factors.
Step 3, and this is arguably the absolute crux of this entire explainer, is the rule of action. Every single complaint must be followed by one action. If the traffic is bad, use the time to listen to an audiobook. If your job is stressing you out, spend 20 minutes updating your resume or learning a new skill. If you're unhappy with your physical health, don't just vent about it, drink a glass of water, or go for a 10-minute walk right now. Replacing a complaint with just one tiny small action creates a monumental compound effect over time.
Step 4 is a simple mental swap that rewires your brain's search engine. We talked earlier about productive questions. Instead of looking at a failure, playing the victim and asking, why is this happening to me? Force yourself to ask, what is this situation teaching me? That single, powerful change in phrasing instantly transforms you from a victim of circumstance into an active student of life.
And finally, step 5, mind your network. Seriously, mindsets are incredibly contagious. If you constantly surround yourself with people who complain about their problems, gossip, and play the victim, you're inevitably going to become one of them. You have to choose your circle wisely. Spend time with people who discuss ideas, growth, learning, and solutions. Their forward-thinking mindset will naturally bleed into yours. To wrap up this explainer, let's summarize the core philosophy here. Life is always going to hand you problems. No one escapes challenges. The difference between the highly successful and the chronically stuck is not the number of problems they face, but how rapidly they can shift from problem mode into solution mode. Complaining acts like a magnifying glass, making problems feel massive and overwhelming. Action, on the other hand, acts like a shrink ray, cutting those problems down to a manageable size. Questions are incredibly powerful tools, but only when they actively lead you toward a solution. So the next time things go wrong, skip the why and jump straight to what can I do next.
Which brings me to my final provocative question for you today. What is one problem in your life that you're going to commit to stop complaining about and start solving today? I want you to really think about it, write your answer down in the comments, and take that very first step today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you found it valuable, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Keep learning, keep growing, and I challenge you to always choose solutions over complaints.